I'm Tom Baker, this is Chasing Cars, and today is a big day if you're Audi because it's not every day you get to replace your most popular vehicle, and that's exactly what we're going to be talking about on today's video because this is the new 2021 Audi Q5. Not all new, but this is the major facelift for the current second generation Q5. And it's going to be arriving in Australia in early 2021 and some other luckier markets at the end of this year. Basically, there'll be this facelift for the Q5, it'll soldier on for another few years and eventually be replaced by an all-new third generation vehicle. But, as we found out in our recent reviews of the Q5, it's actually holding up pretty well, and this facelift is going to help it in the market against key rivals like the X3 and GLC. Now, there are some changes outside and in that we're going to walk through in today's video, including some interesting new technology, some significant changes to the cabin that not everybody is going to like, and then the engines and where the new Q5 is going to be fitting into the Australian market. But before we get started, make sure to hit subscribe down below and the notification bell. It really makes a difference on our way to 100k. And now let's strap in and check out the 2021 Q5. If you're not a truly dedicated Audi spotter, you'd be forgiven for not being able to see that many changes to the Q5's design, at least outside. But that's normal for this German brand. Audi much prefers being subtle to shouting, and personally, I think they've carved out a niche of customers who mainly also feel that way. That being said, there are numerous changes to the way the Q5 looks, and I'll walk you through each of those updates in turn. Let's start up front, and before we do, can we talk about how the press car here is green over tan? There's also wood grain inside, so they really thought about a Chasing Cars spec for this car. Anyway, most noticeable at the front of the new Q5 is the reshaped grille and the wider headlights. Grille-wise, the brief was to bring the Q5 into line with the new Q8 SUV, which has been more successful than expected, and also with the recent Q7 facelift. You can find plenty of Q7 and Q8 content here on the channel. The headlights, which now feature a really animated pattern when the car is unlocked in the dark, are more shapely and angular than before, and a little smaller in height. I actually quite like the new front end, and note that while the Q5 picks up the clamshell bonnet that Audi's liking these days, it skips out on the slat design from the new A1. The new grille is now trapezoidal in shape and broader in general, but while the ever-increasing size of car grilles is bothersome, I actually don't mind this one. Even the black pack, usually a feature that draws my ire, looks good with this sort of army khaki shade of green here. Beneath the grille, new faux air intakes that will possibly be real on the SQ5 and hypothetical future RSQ5 are bigger and more aggressive, housing the sensors for the adaptive cruise control system. Moving around to the side of the new Q5, and as is usual for facelifts, the profile of this crossover isn't very different to before. That's because these midlife bumps usually budget for updated noses and tails, while things like door pressings are untouched. That said, you will notice some changes to the lower door trims, which Audi says are less rugged than before. In fact, they're body-coloured. The updated Q5 is supposed to look more like a wagon and less like a cladded SUV. Audi says that's because only a minuscule percentage of its SUV buyers actually take these cars off-road. What do you think about this change? As well as the lower door trims, there are also some fresh wheel designs, though we've seen these specific ones before as an Audi Sport accessory option. Alright, let's head around the back of the updated Q5. You'll notice that Audi has added a bar of trim connecting the revised taillights, which is a cue from the facelifted Q7. This car has the optional black pack, and I think you'll notice this piece of trim better if you don't go for the black but leave it as bright silver. Speaking of the taillights, this is a spot where the Q5 introduces a fascinating innovation. The taillights upgrade from LED to OLED, and their light signature is now much more complicated. It's also customizable. From the factory, you'll be able to choose one of 3 selectable taillight graphics. One option is the Q shape you see here, and there are 2 different open rectangles on offer. This pattern will be set from the factory, but Audi says they think that in 2 or 3 years, they'll be selling cars with light signatures that you can change from inside the car. Let me know down below whether you think that's a cool idea. Other changes around the back include more subtle revisions to the rear diffuser and a less fake interpretation of tailpipes this time around. That was a feature many people really disliked on the outgoing iteration of the second gen Q5. Next, let's jump inside the Q5 where we find arguably the biggest change on the 2021 model compared to the outgoing shape. If you've been a subscriber for a while, and I hope you have been, We've been talking together about Audi's changing philosophy about cabin tech, namely, Audi are moving away from rotary dials and hard buttons to touchscreens. The outgoing Q5 was one of the last Audis to still use a rotary MMI dial, which we've always found to be a safe and intuitive way to use the cabin tech. That's gone now, replaced by a larger, more squared-off screen atop the dashboard that now integrates touch sensitivity. The software has been updated to Audi's latest system, which is admittedly much easier to touch, with big targets and an easy workflow. Still, we'll miss the natural feel of the old buttons. Let me know if you agree. One thing that will be a big upgrade is the inclusion of wireless Apple CarPlay. Other changes inside are more modest. There is a new design for the virtual cockpit screen, and more storage opened up where the trackpad and rotary dial used to be. This car sports a rich chocolate leather colour and a matte wood grain that, in my opinion, is absolutely fantastic, though no doubt the dominant choice in Australia of black leather and metal accents will continue. Sigh. Engine-wise, the Q5 will carry across many of its powertrains, but more of them will now receive power bumps and adjustments thanks to Audi's increasing commitment to hybridization and partial electrification. For Australia, the range will very likely continue to include a 4-cylinder turbo petrol, a 4-cylinder turbo diesel, a 6-cylinder turbo diesel, and the V6 Turbo SQ5. On the 4-cylinder side, the 45 TFSI 2-litre petrol shared with cars like the VW Golf GTI will be bumped in power to 183 kilowatts, while torque remains at 370 Newton meters. The Diesel 4, badged 40 TDI, now makes up 150 kilowatts, up from 140, while torque sticks around at 400 Newton meters. The two 4-cylinders use 12-volt electrical architecture. It's the 6-cylinders that pack the biggest punch, with both now incorporating 48-volt mild hybrid tech. Probably the most niche option in the Q5 range, but also one of my favourites, is the 50 TDI, which uses a smooth 3-litre turbo diesel V6 for excellent economy and big torque, 620 Newton meters of it, plus 210 kilowatts of power. Meanwhile, Audi has confirmed the performance-focused SQ5 will also return, but will it be petrol or diesel? Audi's European executives insist it'll be diesel, but Audi Australia haven't yet committed. Many people loved the old first-gen SQ5 TDI, and Australians may not be aware that this current shape is also diesel overseas, with a 3-litre producing 255 kilowatts of power and 700 Newton meters of torque. Wow. Let me know below if you'd like to see the SQ5 TDI, or if you want Audi Australia to keep it as a petrol here, where it makes 260 kilowatts and 500 Newton meters. Or, maybe, if we're greedy, they can have both. The new Q5 will arrive in the first quarter of 2021 in Australia, with the SQ5, in whatever form it does come, following closely. So that's a detailed first look at the 2021 Audi Q5. I reckon this is a nice little update. It just brings the exterior design a little bit more into line with where Audi is heading, although I personally will miss those rotary controls in the cabin. But now I want to know what you think of the updated Q5. Let me know all your thoughts down below in the comments. While you're there, make sure to hit subscribe and the notification bell. And as always, thanks for watching Chasing Cars.